Well, it's Punters Inside Run time, and we are officially in the last meeting of winter, even though it's not a bad day outside as we do this. But Shark joins me as always. Shark, we're coming off a pretty good week last week. We don't want to sort of give ourselves a pat on the back too much because we know in racing there's always the next week to come.
Absolutely, Matty. No, it was all right last week. Found a few winners, so hopefully people got around those and ended up with some cash in their pockets. A bit of a trickier week this week, I think, particularly in Sydney. It's a bit of a calm before the storm week in both states, I think.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's get into Sydney. They got two Group 3s. The first one is a terrific race, I think, is the San Domenico Stakes. Where did you land here?
Look, the three horses that I like and that I want to keep an eye on in this race looking forward are Kandinsky, Abstract, Barber, and Libertad, but they've all drawn wide.
Yeah.
So I don't know about a betting race, but I think it's definitely a must-watch race for the future. Kandinsky Abstract is the horse that I think could really go somewhere from this race. His first start, it was like watching a young midfielder in his first pack, Matty. He had to really put the head down and bullock through when the gap came. He exploded through that gap and without hesitation and ran away to a really easy win. I loved that win, and I think this is a horse that could probably go to a Golden Rose if he was running well or winning this, and then he might just shorten up in trip and come back to a Coolmore. I reckon that's what they do with him looking at pedigree. He's out of that really good sprinting mass Solar Charge. So I think this is a sprinter rather than a horse that we'll see progress to a Guineas. But he would be the top pick of those three that I'm most interested in seeing first up in this race.
I settled on Corniche because out of the main runners that you mentioned, Corniche is drawn well and the others are drawn wide. And, there was nothing wrong with Corniche's first preparation. It placed in both the Blue Diamond Preview and the Preludes, and then went to the Sydney in the Skyline and beat Shinzo, who went on to win the Slipper. So I thought Corniche, with that good draw, might be able to box seat and make a late charge with Nash Ruler on board, but not a race that I'm going to dive into, but maybe just have a little bet and, as you say, see what happens out of this race going forward. What about the other Group 3, the up-and-coming stakes? For me, it's hard not to have Caballas after that horror watch last start.
Yeah, and look, he's a justifiable favourite too, with that bad luck and fitness on his side as well. But I think the market's letting us have a try here at big odds on a couple that are pretty handy. Tom Kitten is one of those. He's a stakes winner. He's been right up close in a Group 1 field. His trials, to my eye, have been very, very good in preparation for this first up run. I don't know where he ends up this spring, whether he's a Carbine Club style of 3-year-old or whether he's a Caulfield Guineas style of 3-year-old. But I think definitely a mile is where we'll see him get to his best. He's $12. That seems a bit generous to me. The other horse here is Cafe Millennium. And talk about generous. $21 is available for this horse. I just don't think this horse likes wet tracks. His first start was massive from the back of the field on top of the ground. And he had wet tracks in his next couple when he was a little bit plain to the eye, and a couple of wet track trials as well, which he's been just a bit laborious in, I guess, that ground over that last sort of couple hundred metres of the heats. I think back on top of the ground, which he will get on Saturday, he will run a big race at a big price. He's a massive horse, though, Matty. Huge galloper.
I'll stick with Caballas, as I said. I think that win 2 back against Estrella might turn out to be a really good form race going forward. I think there's a little bit more speed in the race than last time, so James McDonald should be able to box seat on Caballas and hopefully not run into any trouble down the straight like last time. And I think we'll see the best of Caballas over the last furlong. So that's the up-and-coming. Anything else we should be backing in Sydney?
Yeah, in race 9, number 12, Glint of Silver, I reckon this horse is ready. Third
it's a 2-horse race for me.
Yeah, and I love the fact that Jay Ford will probably just go straight to the front on Glint of Silver in a race where there doesn't look to be a lot of pressure up front. I think they get control of the race early. They'll work across from a wide gate, find the front. If they can balance up with some steady sectionals in that mid-race period, I think turning for home, they might just slip away and be really, really hard to run down. Colino won't be far away, but he's got to stand 3.5 kegs to Glint of Silver. And probably, I'd say, standing 2.5 to 3 lengths. So Colino would need to be at its very best to run down Glint of Silver.
They're the only two I'll have in the quaddie, though. But mine, I'm going with a horse that hasn't won for over 700 days, and that is Pioneer River. Now, hard to marry up the Melbourne form to the Sydney form, but this horse is placed behind Benedetta and Sai. One's a group winner, one's about to become a group winner as well. So I think that form might stack up, gets the favourite distance of 1,200. Importantly, gets a dry track, which Pioneer River needs. And just a little tinker with the gear, with the blinkers back on, James McDonald. It's ticking a lot of boxes for me. Pioneer River late in the day in the last at Sydney. All right, let's move to the Valley. We've had the Valley on fortnightly races. It's been hard to work out. I listened to your radio program this morning. The track manager thinks it might play similar to what we saw a fortnight ago, but the rail might be back in business.
Yeah, I think the rail might be back in business. And again, they've had to put 22 mils of irrigation on this week. And, we're still in winter, as you said earlier. So, yeah, we've had some good weather and not a lot of rain at the back end of winter. So I think we'll see pretty quick ground for this time of year. And if you can be up near the speed, certainly in the first third of the field, I think you're in an advantage for sure.
Well, I've got a runner in the Carline Stakes. It'll be up on speed. Who did you settle on?
Acromantula for me.
Again?
And Omni-Man and Sweet Ride all come out of the same race at the Valley last start. Just thought Acromantula probably did enough work in that race and mightn't have been in the best part of the track on that occasion, back towards the inside. Omni-Man was arguably unlucky to beat it, but Acromantula did give them more weight there. Meets those horses better at the weights this time around. Goes straight to the front. If the rail is the place to be and up on speed, Matt, I think it'll be hard to run down.
All right, I'll take Omni-Man in what could well be a battle between the two up on speed, couldn't it? With the barrier 2 for Omni-Man. Been running good times in Sydney. I thought it did a really good job, as you just mentioned. So we'll be on the on-speed runners in the Carline. What else would you like to back in or at the Valley on the weekend?
Couple of good bets early, and then I've got a value runner late. I think race 1, number 2, The Years, has been gelded. It brings some really strong 2-year-old form around Autumn Ballet and Militarised to this race. A couple of jump outs at Flemington. He's Fennican won them by like 9 to 15 lengths. Like, it's just been massive margins with, Jock looking around for the other horses in the heat. So I think he's come back really well. First use of the track, straight to the front. I think The Years is hard to run down. Race number 2, Mawalik. Sneaks into the field. It was an emergency, but there's a couple of scratchings already, so it gets into the field. I think this is a mare that could find herself in better company pretty quickly this spring. I loved her recent jump out at Cassidy. I think she's back and ready to win. And then another horse I think is going to return in really good form, Matt, is in the last. Race 10, number 8, Superazzi. A big price is available, but some really nice trial work at Cranbourne recently. I think if it was in a leading stable, it'd be half the price.
I'm going to go with Roderick in race 3. I know you're against it, but, the blinkers went on. I went to 1,400 metres last start. It just sat one by one. It was a perfect run for it. I just see from Barry 4 getting almost exactly the same run. Damien Lane's off. Mark Zara goes on. We don't lose much there as far as a class jockey goes. We'll put this horse in position. Yes, a little bit more weight. Yes, a little bit tougher. But I think Roderick had a fair bit left when it won comfortably last start, and I'm expecting and as are the punters. It's in from 350 to 250. So there's some good support from Roderick, but I'll be on it early, and I'll be on my Wallach as well. So let's fingers crossed we got plenty in the kick for the quaddie later in the day.
Absolutely. Well, the quaddie looks a little trappy. There are a couple of races there with small fields that might not go the way punters think, but I'm with you. I think the early part of the card at the Valley is the time to be punting.
All right, Shark, happy punting for the weekend. North Melbourne don't need to win because they'll retain that top pick for Harley Reid next year. But we'll see you next week, mate.
Good on you, Matt.
Mick Sharkie joining me as always here on Punters Inside Run. Hope you enjoy the weekend, and hopefully we've found you a couple of winners.
Imagine what you could be buying instead. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.